things, we do have the Q&A open for folks to be able to post questions. So if you, we will have someone monitoring the Q&A section. We will have this presentation and the recording of this presentation posted on both the district website and our school websites. And we aren't using the chat or the raised hand feature tonight, so please do make sure to put your questions in the Q&A. And so again, I'm Dr. Ramirez. I'm the coordinator of student mental health and support at the district office. I will let our other panelists introduce themselves. Let's start with our team from PV High and Mrs. Carpenter.
Hi, my name is Gail Carpenter. I'm associate principal at Palos Verdes High School.
I'm Heidi Solman. I'm the head counselor at Palos Verdes High School.
And Dr. Panegas, can you introduce your team from, let's introduce you guys from Peninsula High School.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Panegas. I'm one of the associate principals at Peninsula High School.
Greetings, Graham Edwards, counselor, Peninsula High School.
Great, so Dr. Panegas is going to start sharing our presentation for this evening, but we just did want to kind of, again, give you an overview of why we're here. So recently the state of California passed a law, AB 104, which outlines some details of some changes to grade change options, graduation requirements, and credit recovery for our 2021-2022 school year. So all of these went into effect in July, and we have some very specific timelines around what we are doing to be able to meet the requirements of this law. So our presentation tonight really is going to go over each of these pieces and explain to you how PVPUSD is implementing the variety of requirements out of AB 104. So to kick it off, I'm going to turn it over to Gail Carpenter, who will be reviewing information for us on grade changes. And Dr. Panegas, I think we can go to the next slide. Perfect.
Thank you. So if your student received an A, B, C, or D, then you can request that the grade is changed to a grade of pass. And with the pass, students will still earn the 5 credits for each semester of the course. If the student received an F, the student may request that it's changed to a no pass, which will remove the letter grade from the GPA calculation, but they still will not earn credit for the course. So a no pass for a required course for graduation means they still need to retake the class. It just won't be calculated into the GPA until they repeat the course. Next slide. So how you request a pass, no pass is by electronically submitting the grading option request, and we've sent the link out by email. Both schools have a couple of times emailed that out, as well as it is on the it is at pvpusd.net/grades, and it's also on the homepage of both high schools' websites. If you have multiple students, then you do have to submit separate forms for each student. And the signature form needs to be included with the submission. Incomplete applications will not be processed. So if you only do part of it and you haven't done the signature pages and uploaded it, then we cannot change the grades. The final request deadline is August 16th. This is actually a date that's mandated by the law itself. So there are no exceptions. We cannot accept late forms. And if you decide later on in the school year that you change your mind, it's too late. We can't go back legally. We cannot go back and change it again. So make sure it's something that you want to do, but make that decision pretty quickly. Upon receipt of the request, the high school has 15 calendar days to update the transcript. So they all have to be completed. If you submit it on the 16th, 15 calendar days would put it on August 31st. You should see it on the transcript at that time. Updated transcripts will be provided to students who have had this change, so you will be able to see that it is on the transcript. And then after August 17th, all grades will be final, including the pass, no pass grades. All courses on the high school transcript from last year, the 2020-2021, are eligible for the pass, no pass option. You can elect pass, no pass in 1 class, 2 classes, all of your classes. It's only applicable to the courses taken through PVPUSD. So this does not include any summer school classes you took, any online classes you took from another agency or through a community college. If you want any of those considered, you have to go to that organization or that school and make the request and see if they will honor it. Some will, some won't, and we don't we don't have the ability to change their grades. And next will be Graham to talk about college admissions.
Hi guys, so it's always good to talk about a sign that says the word caution on it. Take note of that. So I imagine quite a few of you are here this evening about this very topic. Like, what does this all mean post high school? And I mean, the honest answer, guys, is we don't know how this is going to be viewed by colleges moving forward. There's thousands of them in the country, and the ones you probably want to zero in on are the ones in the state of California. I myself, if I was a parent in this situation, would reach out directly to some of the representatives at the schools your students might be interested in. This would obviously apply to the older students in high school, the 12th graders, potentially the 11th graders. I encourage you all to look at these decisions based on the context of your transcript thus far. Obviously, that's a very different decision between a 12th grader this upcoming school year and a 10th grader this upcoming school year. The 12th grader already has a decent track record of courses and grades on that transcript, whereas the 10th grader just has last year in COVID. I don't want you to think that all of this is the world's going to blow up if you make the wrong or right decision, because that just simply doesn't exist. I think you need to look long and hard, the age of your student, the track record that they brought so far in high school. Was last year a blip? Was last year a trend in how they've been in middle school? Be honest kind of about what the work they've done. I have a current 12th grader next year, a very strong student. For that student, all of this kind of kicked in spring of 10th grade for this student. This student, 9th grade, first semester 10th grade grades were phenomenal. Just an outstanding, precocious, just academically gifted individual. This student got through March 2020 till the end of last year okay, and then just really didn't have a very good year last year. It was okay. That's someone who should look at this stuff very differently, because he can maintain how that first year and a half of high school was. But for the younger kids, I would really look at this like, I've got quite a lot of time left still in high school. And one thing about this pass, no pass, you know, when I think of the word passing, the first grade that comes to mind for me is a D. I mean, to be honest with you, and there's 4 letter grades encompassed in this. So consider that. May I have the next slide? I don't know about Palos Verdes High School, but Peninsula, when everything's said and done, sends a lot of students to colleges and universities within the state of California. I mean, that's what ends up happening when all of this is said and done. The California Department of Education has a lot of good information on their website. And to be honest with you, I hope you looked at the principal's update that came yesterday, Sunday. I mean, it's all on there. There's links taking you to these places. Both of the state systems, as it says on this screen, the Cal State system must accept pass grades to meet the A through G subject requirements, the 4 years of English, the math, the histories. But, you know, some of the younger kids, the 10th graders, they're not going to really yet be thinking about post-secondary. I think it's really kind of the current 12th graders, the 11th graders, who should really think, okay, by now I know where I'm applying. I should probably get in touch with these places, reach out to their admissions office and say, what impact, if any, is this going to have on admissions decisions at your school? Because we here on this panel, we just don't know. And that applies even more so for students interested in playing athletics at the next level. Okay, I think that's me.
All right, the next pieces we're going to be talking about are the other two parts of the AB 104 legislation. The first one is the credit recovery. So for the 2021-2020 school year, we are going to be offering our first ever free credit recovery program. It's going to be available at both high schools. And eligible students, the ones that we will first be reaching out to, are the ones that qualify under AB 104. It's failing a class that is required for graduation. So we would obviously target our seniors first, as we want to make sure they're on track to graduate and apply to a 4-year if that's their goals. And then we would kind of go down the list and hopefully hit many different students. These classes won't be semester long necessarily or year long necessarily. They're what's called through Apex, the prescriptive version of the class, since it is makeup. The student is able to test out of certain units and therefore not have to complete the entire unit. So the student actually could complete the class within a few days if they test out of everything and then just take the final. So that's a big positive of it. It will be monitored by a PVPOSD employee, certificated employee, and it will be after school and there will be attendance taken. The teacher will be there 5 days a week, but the student is only needing to be there 3 days a week. So again, it'd be a 7th period of time. So for some of our students that are athletes, they may need to get some time off from their coach to be able to do this. And obviously they'd want to finish it a little bit faster if they could. Or any of our other students that are participating in after school activities. We work with them to figure out how best to serve them so they can participate in this opportunity to avoid having to take summer school. Eligibility and program requirements for the credit recovery. They must be eligible for, they will be eligible if they're a student with us in the 2021-2022 school year. They'll be contacted by the counselor. Priority access to credit recovery will be given to upperclassmen, as I said. Again, it's to repeat a course that's needed for graduation. The one caveat for it is it's no more than 20 credits. So if your student did not pass or received a D in more than 20 credits worth of classes, which would be 4 semesters of a class or 2 years of a class, then that would be their limit on what they could take through this program. But it's not original credit, it's all makeup credit. And as I said, required attendance 3 days a week, that would be worked out with the staff member that is running the program and the student and the family. All right, so the final piece of the AB 104 legislation is retention and graduation requirements. So students that are eligible for retention or decreased graduation requirements are students that received deficient grades for at least 1/2 of their coursework in the 2020-2021 school year. Deficient would mean an F or no pass. So only if a student failed or had deficient grades in more than 1/2 or at least 1/2 of their coursework for the 2020-21 school year only. Then various options will be available based on the grade level. We will be reviewing all records to see what students would be eligible for this. And a meeting with the identified families with the counselor and administration would be held to discuss the different supports, interventions, or other options that we would put in place so that students can meet the graduation requirements. Qualification for graduation exemption, 11th and 12th grade student from the 2020-2021 school year. Not on track to graduate within the 4 years of school based on PVPOSD graduation requirements. Eligible students will be contacted by the school counselor in the coming weeks. Intervention options include statewide coursework required for graduation, a 5th year of instruction, or credit recovery. Retention requests. Eligible students failed more than 1/2 of their coursework in the 2020-21 school year. Parents should contact the site administration in writing to request a conference to discuss their students' progress and intervention options if they believe their student meets these criteria. A conference will be scheduled with a parent and student within 30 days of the written request. Interventions will be discussed to support the student. Now I know here, sorry, let me go, I can't go back. One question I'm sure we will get here is about retention and what that means. So it uses the word retention, but as you saw in those previous slides, it wasn't about repeating 11th grade. It wasn't about repeating 12th grade. It wasn't about repeating a grade. What it says is that you will be offered a 5th year as a senior. So if you request the retention, your student will move on as a junior, as a senior next year, takes junior and senior coursework. But then if they cannot make the graduation requirements by the end of their 4 years, they will be offered a 5th year to do that. But all of that would be discussed at the meeting upon your request. It looks like Graham is talking about that. Are there other questions in the Q&A that we would like to answer live for the group?
There are a few questions that we want to make sure that we have, and some things, maybe things we already answered, but I think it's important for us to provide some clarification for some parents and make sure that we have all of their questions answered. Again, parents, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A and we will take this time now to answer them. Ms. Schulman is continuing to answer some questions, but Graham, perhaps you could give some clarification to a parent who seems a little, I'm just going to straight read what they wrote. Says, I'm a bit confused by Graham's example of a rising 12th grader with a bad semester. Is he saying the blip scenario is when you want to consider the pass, no pass, pardon me, or is the blip scenario when you consider letting the letter grades? Could you please clarify?
I was just typing that, but okay. It's easier to speak. In that person's case, that student's GPA was so strong from the first 3+ semesters of high school, that might not be a bad idea to take the pass in these courses that just didn't go so well in the 11th to keep that GPA as strong as it was. This is someone whose GPA coming into the 11th grade was a 5.0. So that would be worth it, in my opinion, to do some of those.
So we have another question in the chat or in the Q&A that's a little bit similar to this. Is there a point where changing a grade of a C to a pass would be beneficial?
I don't think so. I mean, that's just my opinion. Anyone else chime in?
I mean, I think it depends what grade you're in. If you're a freshman student, you still have 10th and 11th and 12th grade to get through, and a higher level class will satisfy a lower level class, depending on if it's a language class, if it's a math class, if it's a science class. So to change it to a pass would be fine, depending on the type of college that you might be applying to, would depend on the outcome of that. You know, you see in college, they look at 10th and 11th grade more closely than they look at 9th grade, but other private schools might not be the case for that. So to give you a black and white answer after when changing a C to a pass might be beneficial is a hard question to answer. I think you just have to figure out what might be the most beneficial to you in that case.
And if I can clarify kind of what both of them are saying is, it's the effect on the GPA. So if you're in 9th grade, your only classes are those ones you've taken so far. But if you're coming up to be a senior, you have a whole bunch of letter grades that are calculated. So if you guys want to just figure out how it affects your kid's GPA, you literally Google the words GPA Calculator, and you can figure out what it'll do for your kid's GPA. I think I did one for one parent just because they were the only person that asked me. And it was like a 0.02 effect on their overall GPA because they were going into senior year and it was one class they wanted to pass for. So, but use that information as you will. Maybe 0.02 means a lot to your kid or means a lot to you, and that's fine. But the GPA calculator would be a good way for you to figure out the impact it will have on your students. Trista, could you speak to the confirmation thing? Because I've had a couple of people reach out at the school on, how do they know if they've done everything completely and everything's submitted?
So if for whatever reason a family had an incomplete application, the school team will be reaching out to you to clarify what your intention is. We have some families who have started the form and not finished it, but submitted a signature page or filled out a form, but not a signature page. So all of those incomplete applications, we will be contacting, the school teams will be contacting those families. So someone from Peninsula will be reaching out to their families and someone from PV High will be reaching out to theirs to be able to really figure out, did you intend to finish the form and you just didn't work through the whole thing? We want to make sure that every student who wants to take advantage of the pass, no pass grading has the opportunity to do so. There is a question that has been posed that I want to ask if someone could speak to, which is the impact of pass, no pass grades on eligibility for being a valedictorian. So Dr. Panegas, could you maybe speak to that one?
Yes, so this is also something that is in place for any student who's retaking a D or a C. So this is not just based on what's happening here, but basically the board policy states that you cannot be a valedictorian unless you have all A's on your transcript. So even if the GPA now is the 4.0, what's affected is the transcript has to be all A's on it. So with a pass or a no pass on it, it immediately takes you out of the running.
Great, thank you. A parent is asking if there's any other states who have adopted similar legislation with pass, no pass grades. I will be honest, I have not heard of any. I don't know if anyone else on the panelist on here has heard, but this, I am not aware of any other ones. I'm only more privy to what's happened in California with that. Okay. We have another question. Will a C in a math class with an A through G requirement be beneficial to take a pass if the GPA improves when dropping the C for a rising senior? So basically, it sounds like the student, by taking that C out of the grade point average, I think, Graham, this talk kind of goes back a little bit to what you're talking about. You have this depth of grades, right, that are there. You know, I think for each student, it's an individual decision on kind of how the decision to take a pass, no pass grade really impacts your grade point average. Like Dr. Panegas said, what schools you're applying to. I think the more competitive the school that you're applying to within the state system, the UC system, the more competitive. I mean, I know that, for example, USC is on the list of a private school that will take pass, no pass grades. I think the more competitive the school that you're looking at, whether it's one of the private schools that have said that they would take that or a UC or Cal State school, the more competitive the school is, the more they're going to want to see that you've posted actual letter grades in the past school year. So I do think that that's a piece of the puzzle that we want to make sure that parents are aware of. Does anybody have anything else to chime in on there about that one that other than what I've said? Okay. Could you maybe walk through again where I find the information to make these grade changes? Dr. Panegas, where is the information on your website? And then Mrs. Carpenter, maybe you could walk us through where that is for you guys.
Absolutely. In fact, I can even share my screen one more time here so you can see where it is. On our Panther Picks, PVPUSD grade change information takes you here, then you have to click one more time, and then it takes you to the district website where you see all of the information, and the forms are down here at the bottom. And this is the language for I think this is the one you have to print out. Is that correct, Trista? Mm-hmm. Or that you can sign electronically, either way. So that takes you to that document that needs to be submitted when you go here and start that whole process. And I will stop sharing now. So that's for Peninsula High School. Front page, Panther Picks, second one.
So for Palos Verdes High School, on the front page, there's a link right underneath the big C key picture that says click here for AB 104 info and links. And it takes you to actually the email that I sent out that has all of the information, all of the links on it to fill out the form, and also to see the website information at the district where they're updating the different colleges and how they are responding to the AB 104 law.
We have a question that had been posed previously about intermediate school grades and whether or not an intermediate school grade could, for a high school class, could take a pass, no pass.
The high school, they're asking if the middle school grade can be changed. That would have to be addressed with your middle school. The high school cannot change what was done at the middle school on the transcript.
And the intention, that intermediate school transcript, the intention of the AB 104 language is really about high school transcripts because those are the transcripts that are shared with the colleges. So in terms of making a change on that website, that would only be for, I'm sorry, not website, on the intermediate school transcript. The AB 104 grade changes is only applicable to courses that appear on the high school transcript. We have a question from the about who would be available to discuss individual scenarios with students. So I'm going to let Dr. Panegas answer for Peninsula High School of who they should reach out to if they have specific questions about their site. And then Mrs. Carpenter, you can answer for your site.
The counselors at Peninsula High School do not return to the office till next Monday. So they will not be responsible for checking email necessarily. Some of them do, but I cannot make any promises on that. So if you have questions about individual student at Peninsula High School, you can reach out to me, basically, and I'll do my best.
At Palos Verdes High School, we have our counselors are back this week, but you can email your counselor and CC me so that one of us will get back to you for sure this week. We have a lot of emails coming in right now.
With specific questions about how it will affect your GPA, that's something you would have to calculate on your own. So like I said, you can go online and find a GPA calculator. So any questions where it's like directly, what's my GPA going to be? Even if your counselor was around, I wouldn't expect them to calculate that for you. That would be work you would need to do to kind of figure out how it's going to impact your grades or your GPA overall.
But I think the important thing to remember too is that the pass, no pass grade is not calculated in a student's grade point average. So there, once we remove that grade, if your student had a failing grade of an F, it gets removed from their grade point average calculation, and then the no pass is on there. That no pass no longer is being calculated into the grade point average. So there is a question of, is it fair to surmise that at a larger school, because of the size of the applicant pool, they would be less likely to notice the pass class grade? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
A selective's the larger school.
Correct.
I mean, sure, Montana State, probably not going to make a big difference. UCLA, different answer.
So I think it again goes back to the selectivity of the university is what I'm hearing you say, Mr. Edwards. How selective is that campus, regardless maybe necessarily of the size of the school? I also think when you're looking at out-of-state schools, it's a very different process. I would highly recommend reaching out directly to those universities. Someplace that's a larger university like University of Arizona may feel, even though it's a large campus, may feel very differently about a pass, no pass grade. There was a question about eligibility for athletics and how pass, no pass grades will impact your athletic eligibility. I'm not sure if they mean for NCAA or for regular, for your own CIF eligibility. So perhaps let's just answer the question from the standpoint of both.
The high school, your eligibility in high school is based on the previous term's GPA. So if a pass is put in there in place of another grade, the GPA is from that semester is now recalculated and will be based on whatever the new GPA is if you choose to put a pass or no pass on your transcript for that class. In terms of NCAA eligibility, they will be going about the same way that the colleges are. Is that correct, Tristan? Yeah, so since if the colleges are going to be accepting it, then the NCAA will abide by that and honor that.
Yeah, we would recommend that you go, NCAA has very specific regulations around pass, no pass grades. It's very well outlined on the NCAA website. So if you have a student who is a current athlete that is looking to play upper division university sports, it would be advisable to look at that policy and see how it's calculated into their grade point average. Would a pass, no pass grade affect CSF eligibility?
Good question. Honestly, something we had not addressed, but as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Gail, the CSF is based on GPA. And so if the GPA is that, if that is what the GPA is, then the student will remain eligible. One other thing that I would want to mention, I know we said there's no going back, but just someone asked a question about an AP class, so I just came to my mind. If your teacher is going to be changing letter grades and has not done so yet for an AP class, and you've chosen pass, there's no going back to it. There's no saying, oh, but I had a C, now I have a B, now I'll keep that on my transcript. Once you choose pass, that's it. So if you're thinking about this for an AP class and your teacher might change grades later on because you got a 4, 3, 5, whatever the rule was, just keep that in mind.
We have another question about AP classes in the Q&A. It's if you choose a pass on an AP class, how does that affect the college course credit if you are gotten a 2 on the AP exam? I don't necessarily know, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that your grade in the class necessarily impacts the college giving you credit. It is typically just driven by the test score. So whatever the college or university will give credit for based on your student's test score, that would actually be what determines whether or not a student gets credit, course credit for that AP exam, not necessarily what the grade was in the class. We have a question about whether pass, no pass grades can only apply to one semester or the whole school year. Again, it's a choose your own adventure situation. So you can choose just fall semester, just spring semester, 2 classes, 5 classes, 1 class, 1 semester or the other. It is really kind of up to you how you would choose to select that, and all of that needs to be outlined in the form you're completing.
One person was asking about how quickly will grades be updated by teachers. There's no guarantee on how quickly that will happen, but if you know your teacher will raise your grade because you got a 4, then you just know that. So it might not happen right away, but if you know, my teacher told me if I earn a 4, 1 semester will be bumped up 1 letter grade. If that was in their syllabus, if you know that's true, just know that it will happen. Just no guarantee on the timeline for that.
Could we one more time just cover how it is that a student who is eligible for credit recovery, if someone is interested in that, how will the parents be notified? What does that look like for you guys?
Both high schools have spent a lot of time gathering names of students that are credit deficient in some way or another, because we want to always make sure we're on top of our students that may need to get extra help. And we did all this prior to the AB 104. So both the team at PD High and the team at Peninsula High School have lists of names of kids that are already credit deficient that they researched, that we will be reaching out to, as we said, on an upperclassman basis and then moving down. But if parents would like to reach out because they haven't heard from their counselor in what they feel is a timely manner, then feel free to do that. But just keeping in mind that Peninsula's counselors are returning Monday and are going to be focusing first on getting kids' schedules correct. So that's going to be their top priority for the first week or so of school. So if your kid is not enrolled in credit recovery on day 1, fear not. We will make sure we get to it, and we will definitely fill all 34 seats in that class.
And then also just kind of on the same line there, again, if we could just reiterate to parents, if they had a concern and wanted to discuss at this point retention, who does that retention request go to? I would assume it goes to the site, to the administrator at your site and not your counselor. So I'm going to throw it out there and say I believe it would be Dr. Panegas and Mrs. Carpenter, but please maybe reiterate so that we can make sure that parents who are questioning graduation requirements, options for that, or anything else, who they should reach out to your site.
Yeah, for me, I'd say definitely me. And then I would ask that you also include the counselor just so that they're in on it. It just speeds the process up, I believe, a little bit so that everyone knows, okay, this is what we're working towards. I got to make sure I'm on top of this and getting there as soon as I can after we get schedules done.
Absolutely. Yeah. Email me and CC the counselor. It's great for communications. We can all be on the same page and make sure that you have the best information.
And just so parents are aware, we do have timelines associated with that as well. So once we receive that request from a family, we do have 30 days to be able to hold a consultation meeting, discuss parent concerns, and make sure we are developing an appropriate intervention plan for the student based on their specific needs in terms of meeting their graduation requirements and where they're at in meeting requirements for PVPUSD, the student's grade level, whether or not they have other support services. So there are a lot of things that go into making those decisions and how we would provide support to a student who is in need of credit recovery or graduation requirements. We have another question in the Q&A. If you are retaking a class this coming year, should we bother with choosing pass, no pass, or will the next grade just completely change the original grade, pass, no pass grade? So I think it probably would be helpful to clarify that even when a student repeats a class, whether that original class had that first grade or has the grade of the pass or no pass, all of those grades still appear on a student's transcript. So repeating the grade or repeating the course and earning a new grade does not remove the old grades. That old grade still appears there, and then that grade is no longer calculated in the grade point average, but the new grade is, but both grades still appear on a student's transcript. That would be the same policy for the pass no pass as it would be if a student left the C on and left the D or the F on their transcript. So I want to make sure if we have any other questions that our parents have an opportunity to put those in the chat or in the Q&A. We want to make sure that we've answered all the questions that you might have. We understand that this is a big decision and we want to make sure that you have the time to ask the panel any other questions that you may have. So we'll pause for a minute and just remind you that the deadline for the request of this is August 16th, which is next Monday. So the form will be open through next Monday evening. So parents can go ahead and fill that out and complete that. And again, after August 17th, based on the timeline set forth with AB 104, all grades for the 2020-21 school year with relationship to this particular law would be final. So if we've changed your grade from a C to a pass, then that pass stands. Or if you chose not to participate in the pass no pass grading, then those grades that your student earned in the 2020-2021 school year would stand. So it looks like we don't have any other questions coming in. I'm trying to stall just in case someone's typing, we want to make sure everybody has any questions answered. Anybody else think of anything that we haven't covered that you've heard from other parents? Because I know all of you have been talking with folks. Is there things that you think we should reiterate just to make sure that everyone has their questions answered?
I would like to just remind everyone that this is being recorded, and the PowerPoint and the recording, as Ms. Schulman pointed out, will be on all websites, front and center. So there'll be a place where you can see all of them. If in case you feel like you missed something, you want to go back to it, maybe you couldn't join us right away, whatever it is, or if you know someone that didn't get to come and they want to have us go over it, then just let them know that that's there. And we're actually, the credit recovery piece of this, we're very excited about it. We think this is a huge added benefit for our families to be able to take care of some of this stuff during the school year. So we're very excited about that opportunity.
All right. And again, all of this information is available on your school websites. You can also go to pvpusd.net/grades/. And we will make sure too to provide the link for the CDE information so that you folks can have a list of the school colleges and universities that have already agreed that they are willing to accept the pass no pass grades, so that you have that list beyond the Cal States and the UCs. Looking at the private university list, it has grown a little bit, but it's not very many private universities are on here yet, but that list may continue to change as the CDE is updating that. So we will make sure that we include that link again when we repost our information. So it doesn't look like we have any other additional questions coming into the chat, but please do reach out to your site administrators if you have any other questions or concerns regarding the grading or the request regarding graduation options for your students. And thank you very much for coming this evening. We know it's difficult to make an evening presentation when you have a lot of things going on with your family, particularly as summer is wrapping up. So again, thank you very much all for being here. It was very much appreciated. Thank you, my panelists, for giving up your time this evening and being here to be able to support this process for our students. Have a great night, everybody.